Ralph, how are you, man?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah. So tell me, what's going on with you? I mean, we didn't see you in the rock business in a while, so what are you doing?
Well, I left the band a couple of years ago, as probably most people know, and I started doing film music. I'm the only one that lives here in America, I mean, for like more than 10, 15 years now. Actually, I lived here in America even before I joined the band. Like 95, 96, I did my first movie. I bought a house up in the hills on Mulholland, and I used to throw all these really big parties there.
Yeah?
And I had probably like 600-700 people there. And, you know, some of them were movie producers, and I was in the studio, I was jamming around, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, have you ever done music for a film?" And I said, "No, not really, but I studied, you know, classical orchestral music in Germany when I was like 20, like 19, 20, 21, like for like 3 or 4 years, upright bass and piano. And composition and all that, you know, played in orchestras, Mozart, Beethoven, all that classical stuff. And so they offered me to do this movie. It's called Lancelot, Guardian of Time. That was my first movie that I ever did with Mark Singer and Claudia Christensen and so on and so forth.
Mark Singer?
Yeah, I know. He was in that movie, The Beastmaster, too. He was actually a funny guy, because I remember after that for the same company. And Gangland, I also had an acting part, so I did some producing, financing, wrote the main 2 songs, the title track called Gangland, and another song called Mystery that runs in the end credits. And I also did some acting, like because I do martial arts, like samurai sword fighting.
Oh yeah, martial arts.
Yeah,
what do you do?
Like you know, like kendo, samurai.
Kendo, okay.
Yeah. So I played like a bad guy, like a samurai sword fighter, and that was my first acting role. We were filming at Universal Studios, and then after that I did another movie, Redemption, which was my first movie. Well, actually, Lancelot was my first movie where I did all the scoring, and then Redemption I did all the score, and also I wrote 17 songs in there for that movie. So that was quite a bit of stuff. And from there on, you know, I got more and more movie offers. So those movies I did all in between Scorpion tours. You know,
right.
when we were on the tour, when we were touring with the Scorpions, we were on tour for like a few months here and there. Like the longest, I think it was like 10 or 11 months in one piece. And then, you know, we had a break for like sometimes almost up to like 8-9 months. Of course, we always had like interviews or photo shoots or you know, TV shows in between. You know, we had to fly back and forward, but there was like breaks, and everybody else was with their family in Germany. So, and I started doing, in these breaks, I started doing more and more films, more and more movies, and by now I've done about almost 50 films now. So, and at one point I felt that the band, you know, wouldn't be lasting forever, and I'm like 20, 25 years younger than the rest of the guys in the band.
Right, yeah.
And I knew that it wasn't going to last forever.
More than James.
What?
James is kind of your
yeah, similar age. I felt that it wasn't going to last forever, so I just made a decision that I needed to do something else with my life, because I was asking myself, hey, what if I'm like, you know, 46 or like almost 50 years old, and the band, and Klaus decides he doesn't want to sing anymore, right. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there with no career, and the music industry downhill when, you know, the internet kicked in with all the, you know, illegal downloads, I mean free downloads, and then Napster and all that stuff. It kind of destroyed the music industry. So in order to actually make a fair living, or a living at all as a musician, you had to be on tour, you know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So not just releasing, you know, music.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the band has been on tour since the early '70s, and for me, I mean, in my head, I mean, we never talked about it, but in my head, it was just a question of time. You know, when the band comes to the decision, or Klaus or anybody, well, what if Klaus loses his voice or something, you know?
Yeah.
So and then
something is going to happen soon. They're going to finish.
Well, yeah, that's what they said. I mean, they said this is their farewell tour, but I mean, I've heard many bands say that before.
Yeah.
And I had a personal discussion with all of them, and they pretty much all said that yes, this is their last tour. They decided that they want to quit, but you know, I mean, these guys, they're so used to it. Once they sit at home for like a couple of years, who knows what's going to happen? I mean,
right.
I don't want to predict anything. I don't want to spread any rumors. I know just as much as anybody else, but as far as I know, this is the last tour, and I'm happy that I made the move, because now I'm kind of tuned in the movie industry. I'm still working on, you know, getting my career, you know, bigger and better. I mean, you can always step up further.
Right.
But I'm kind of happy that I did that step, because now, you know, if it's really their last tour, you know, and then, you know, what do? You know, because now the music industry, like trying to find a job or trying to like join a band as a bass player or drummer or whatever, guitar player these days with another band that is almost, or let's say at least like a quarter as successful as Scorpions, is almost impossible.
Yeah. Like an employee.
But even if that happens, you know, I mean, like, I've always said that I've never really been that much of a rock and roll guy anyways. I'm not a I'm not a hard rock kind of guy. I mean, I grew up, actually the first song that I ever played, funny enough, was Smoke on the Water when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I destroyed every single radio in our house when I got my first bass guitar. But, so I started off with rock music. I used to listen to, like, you know, Deep Purple, yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Beatles, you know, all those things. So I started off with rock. Then I got into more advanced, like more like fusion, jazz, rock, you know, like you know, all kinds of other music, like, you know, Stanley Clarke. You know. Was a big influence of mine. You know, I played a lot of fretless bass and, you know, a lot of like, you know, stuff like that, really fast. Yeah. And so I wasn't really like a typical heavy metal rock guy, you know what I'm saying? And then I pretty much played every style of music that exists on this planet, at one point or another. You know, I mean, from like reggae to like hard rock, Latin, everything. I just liked good music, even classical music. So I played everything, and I played various instruments too, as some people might not know, but I play, you know, different instruments as well. So then at one point I made the decision. I did very good in Europe, in Germany, but it was just not big enough for me. So I wanted to, you know, explore the world, you know, follow the big musician's dream to become like worldwide famous, which everybody thought I was insane. And then I asked everybody, where's the biggest city in the world for the music industry? And everybody said Los Angeles. I said, okay, that's where I'm going. So within 2 weeks, I sold everything except 2 suitcases and my 2 main basses. And I moved over here, lived with Jimmy Bain, who back in the days was the bass player for Ronnie James Dio. And my singer, I had a band back then, with a singer, Herman Filians, great, fantastic band, fantastic guy. He was just like Jim Morrison, really, really spiritual, good lyrics. And so we had a band together. We broke the German band up because we went to a lot of record companies, and they all told us, you know what, you guys are like 10 years ahead of your time. You sound like, you know, what's going to happen in about, you know, 5 to 10 years in the music industry. And you guys should move to America. You're going to have more luck there.
When was that? What time was that?
Okay, I joined the band in 91, 92, and 4 years before that I came to America. So that was like 88, 89.
Right.
Yeah. So that was still when all like Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, you know, everybody was on their peak, you know, all those like high screaming, high pitched voices. And I had a band that already sounded grungy, that already sounded like, you know, like Nirvana and all those bands, or like Korn, Limp Bizkit that you hear now with the deep, strong voices and like more powerful and intense, deep lyrics, not just like this blah, 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 like, you know, love you, or like about like ass and tits and cars and shit. And
before Scorpions, right?
What?
It was before Scorpions?
That was way before Scorpions, yeah. So I lived here, and we formed a new band here, and we came pretty far with that as well. But then our singer, Herman, had a bad accident. He was hospitalized for about like 6 to 8 months. And I was stuck here. Then the girl that I was living with, the apartment burned down to the ground. So at one point, I literally only had like a pair of sweaters, sweatpants, the socks, shoes, and a T-shirt and a motorcycle left. I had to borrow underwear from my friends and stuff. It was really bad. And so I did the total dive here in America. And then at one point, this guy Edgar from the band Bonfire, the drummer.
Bonfire, German Bonfire?
Yes, German Bonfire. We used to hang out together, and he used to look like Herman Rarebell a little bit in the days. And I, for some reason, had longer hair, and it was a little blonder. I just recently cut it off and made it a little black. I don't know if anybody really notices the change. That'll change. And they used to like call us from the back in the lines, you know, like, hey, Scorpions. They used to literally, and there was this guy, this like hardcore, I can't remember his name, this hardcore Scorpions fan that used to run around town. Back in the days, LA was crazy. It was nuts. It was completely different. It was all rock and roll. Everybody had long hair. Everything was rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so was I. I had long hair. I was wearing leather, and, you know, and then this hardcore, I remember this guy, he used to follow me around calling me Francis the whole time. I'm like, dude, first of all, I don't even know who Francis Buchholz is. I mean, I was kind of like...
Oh, Francis, okay.
Yeah, the old, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't even know the Scorpions, I told him. I have nothing to do with them. Stop calling me that. I'm not Francis. And he was like, but you look just like him. I said, okay, great. So we used to, Edgar and me, we used to hang out. Yeah. We used to hang out, and, you know, they used to call us into clubs like, oh, Scorpions, come right in. And we used to go, okay. So it was kind of funny. And then Edgar went back to Germany. I stayed here, got married to a stripper. Wow.
Okay.
The good old story of a starving musician getting married to a stripper that had to finance everything. Because I was broke, and I started working construction for $3.50.
So she worked for you?
Well, she was working. She was paying all the bills. Yeah. I mean, back in the days, every musician, all the guys from Guns N' Roses, I mean, they were all living in my neighborhood. You know, like all the guys that started and became big, like, you know, like what were they all called? Like L.A. Guns and these and that. Yeah. All those heavy metal bands. Yeah. They were all living in my neighborhood. The guys were all dating strippers. None of them were working. They were all broke, and the girls were all paying the. It was the guys were all rock musicians with long hair, and the girls were all strippers. That was this city. That was it. Not in a bad way. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, then I was stuck here, and then and then Edgar calls me he went back to Germany, and he calls me one morning, and I'm like totally asleep, like 9 in the morning or something. 9 o'clock in the morning, he's like screaming in my ear, dude, the Scorpions, they fired their bass player. You're a perfect guy. You even look like him, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Scorpions? Who? What? Call me back later, dude. I hung up the phone. And then, it's a true story. And then and I was completely broke. And I was working construction and stuff like that, you know, because I was freshly married, but she kind of like took off to San Francisco because she thought she was making more money there. She was probably dating some rich guy there, I don't know. So then he calls me back 20 minutes later and screams in my ear, says, Scorpions, man, don't you know what I'm talking about? You know, the biggest band in the world, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. So he gave me the number from Herman Rarebell. Herman Rarebell, whatever. And I called him in Monaco, and he said he was doing a solo album with some English guitar player where he needed a bass player as well. And then he said, well, send me a tape. So I sent him a tape. Back in the days, it was still tapes, like cassettes. I sent him a tape with me playing all this Jaco Pastorius and Stanley Clarke kind of stuff. Yeah. And he was like, wow, man, I've never heard somebody play the bass like this before. But because I was really good back then. I practiced like 8 hours a day that's all I did.
You mean you're not that good now?
Well, I don't really play as much bass anymore. Now